I recorded my friend's fiance at her bachelorette party and played the recording for him. So my best friend Casey was getting married to this guy Trevor, and I was super excited for her. He was one of those guys who was always making weird comments about other women in front of Casey, like rating celebrities or whatever. She'd just laugh it off, but it always made me uncomfortable. Anyway, Casey's bachelorette party was last month. We rented this cabin in the mountains for the weekend. The plan was pretty basic: drinking, games, maybe some hiking if we weren't too hungover. There were 8 of us total, mostly college friends and a couple of her work friends. The first night was actually really fun. We played stupid party games, did face masks, the whole thing, but Casey started getting really drunk really fast, like way more than usual. She was taking shots every 10 minutes and chugging wine between them. By midnight, she was completely wasted. That's when things got weird. She started talking about Trevor in ways that made everyone uncomfortable. At first, it was just complaining about how he never listens to her or helps with wedding planning. But then she started saying stuff about their relationship that was way too personal. She told us Trevor had been texting his ex-girlfriend for months. Not just friendly stuff either, like late-night conversations about how he missed her and wasn't sure about getting married. Casey said she'd seen the messages but hadn't confronted him because she was scared he'd call off the wedding. Then she started crying and said she wasn't even sure she wanted to marry him anymore. She said he made her feel ugly and boring, and that she caught him looking at other women all the time when they were out together. Her cousin Hannah was recording everything on her phone because she thought it was funny that Casey was being so dramatic. But then Casey said something that made my stomach drop. She said Trevor had been pressuring her to sign a prenup that would basically leave her with nothing if they got divorced, and that he'd been hiding money from her in some account she didn't know about. She said she felt trapped because all the wedding deposits were already paid, and her family had spent so much money. The worst part was when she started talking about how Trevor treats her in private. She said he calls her stupid when she doesn't understand something, and that he gets angry when she wants to hang out with friends. She said he'd been isolating her from people for months, and she just realized it. Everyone was just sitting there in shock. Casey's sister tried to get her to stop talking and go to bed, but Casey kept going. She said she'd been having panic attacks about the wedding and taking anxiety medication she hadn't told anyone about. I felt sick listening to all this. Hannah was still recording, thinking it was hilarious gossip, but I could see Casey was having like a breakdown. This wasn't just drunk rambling, this was her finally being honest about how miserable she was. The next morning, Casey didn't remember saying any of it. She was hungover and embarrassed, but had no clue what she'd confessed to all of us. Hannah showed her the video, and Casey turned white. She begged Hannah to delete it and made everyone promise never to tell Trevor what she'd said, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Casey was my best friend since high school. I'd watched her become this confident, funny person, and now she was marrying someone who was slowly destroying that. The wedding was in 3 weeks, and I knew she was going to go through with it because she felt like she had to. So I did something that probably makes me a terrible person. I asked Hannah to send me the recording before she deleted it. I told her I wanted to make sure it was really gone from her phone, but actually I saved it to mine. I spent 2 weeks going back and forth about what to do. Part of me thought I should mind my own business, but every time I saw Casey, she looked more stressed and miserable. She'd lost weight and was constantly checking her phone like she was waiting for Trevor to text her back. Finally, I decided I couldn't watch her marry this guy. 3 days before the wedding, I drove to Trevor's apartment. I told him I needed to talk to him about something important regarding Casey. He let me in, and I just played the recording, all of it. His face went through like 5 different emotions. First confusion, then anger, then what looked like relief. When it was over, he was quiet for a long time. Then he said he'd been having doubts too, but didn't know how to bring it up with Casey. He said he'd been texting his ex because he was scared about getting married, and that he knew Casey deserved better than someone who wasn't fully committed. Trevor called off the wedding that night. 6 months later, Casey thanked me. She said calling off the wedding was the best thing that ever happened to her.